All right, this is Dave Gagnon, and this is the Gagnon Group growth meeting. Um, and if you don't mind, we'll just start from right from the top here. Um, so the question is, what would you guys like to cover today? And Tim has let me know that he's been in the company now for a few months and is an experienced agent and would like to hone his skills to get better at the conversations and attracting people to the company. So, Tim, thank you so much for giving me the topic this morning and offering of yourself to be part of we're just going to treat it as a one-on-one coaching call. And then, people can jump in with questions along the way too. So, Tim, just for the purpose of the recording, just give us one more time how long you've been with the company and how long have you been a productive real estate agent?
Dave, I am in my 24th year of real estate. Been a top producer every year, and I've been with EXP since last September after almost 18 years with KW.
I gotcha. I gotcha. And so you've been with us for a little while, and so I'm going to assume that you've attempted a little bit to get in the conversation with folks. Would you share how that has gone?
It seems that at least the people who I made contact with didn't seem to have much interest, weren't even subtly amazed as to why I left a company that I'd been with for 18 years and moved to a relatively unknown in our area. One of the distractions I think that we have in our area is that we brought on some inexperienced people that were not productive at the beginning, so it gave us the impression that we had a company, but we really weren't doing anything. I've been the first agent to cap in Idaho, and even though we've been open in Idaho, I think since, 2012 or something like that. And
Sure. Well, good.
So my experiences have been just kind of non-interest, I guess, at this point. And I kind of thought that leaving Keller Williams, that a lot of people would say, "Hey, why'd you leave? What's the story?"
Yep. Yeah, well, and I think that changes a little bit based on personal tie-ins, right? So, have you done a disc profile on yourself, Tim?
I have. I'm a high I, followed by C or S and C, and D is just totally not on the chart at all.
Yep. Yeah. So are your S and C above the 50% line or below it?
Below it.
Okay. And so typically, as a high I, right, we're the life of the party, and if we go into a room, typically, a section of the room gravitates towards us,
That's correct.
right? And so that's a powerful natural behavior to have, right? So if someone has a lower I would coach them to raise their I. But being a high I and outgoing, gregarious, life of the party, type, then relationships, should be your strong suit. And
Correct.
so it's not about recruiting to EXP. It's about attracting them, and that always starts with being attractive. And so if we're local, we have the ability just to meet with people and to build a relationship. Um, you know, I've built a lot of regions, a lot of groups across the country, and the only way that works is if you find a leader first, right? But once you're the person in the local area, I think it gets a lot easier, but the provincial thinking of an area also comes into play. So, for example, in New England, most people are very provincial, slow to change, need a lot of proof before they're comfortable, those kind of things. In other parts of the country, typically the South, much more friendly, much more open and warm. Um, it, you know, uh, you can invite someone over for a social at your house, or go have a social with them, and I think attitudes are different in different parts of the country. So, but I think attraction is, especially in a local mindset, is all about relationships. And if you want to be a good attractologist, I think you need to be good at social skills, right? So just having a lunch with someone, just having a cup of coffee with someone is the fastest way to attract them to the company, I think. And so Nathan and I are working on our local area because for 5 years, I've been mostly in the process of identifying leaders and sharing that opportunity. And I'm still doing some of that, but I really want to help Nathan focus locally. So the training and coaching, the strategies and tactics um, um, that I'm sharing here are the same things that we're doing locally. And so I know once I get someone, to meet face to face, we are a long way towards moving them over, right? Because I think I'm affable, and I think I can convey stories fairly well. And so if I can get to meet someone, it's not that they're going to come over today, but they're going to come over when the timing is right for them, right? And so I think oftentimes, Tim, we we look at a scenario and we judge ourselves based on the final result. So, for example, if I get a buyer or a potential buyer, and I meet with them and they don't buy the house, how do I judge myself? Well, I think with a buyer, I would I would easily adopt to the concept that they're not ready to buy yet, but if they continue to look and if they're serious buyers, that they're going to buy a house through me. I think when we do a listing appointment and we do our presentation and they don't choose us, they're probably going to choose someone else, and we feel that's a defeat. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And so I think oftentimes when we're looking to attract people to the opportunity here, we look at it like it's a listing presentation and not a buyer's presentation. In that you're willing to talk with me, I give you my entire value proposition in whatever manner I do it, and at the end you decide to stay with your current company, and we take that as a defeat, and that can wear on us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do understand that feeling.
Okay. And what I'm going to propose to you, Tim, is the art of attraction is more about them being a buyer versus a lister, a seller. And what I mean by that is, if someone owns a house and they've decided to sell it, they decided to test the market, let's say, and they said, you know what, if we can get 350, sure we would sell, but we're not thinking about selling. We'll put it on the market, we'll test it. We know it's not going to sell, and at least we'll know, and then we can work on getting the house fixed up and get it on the market next spring when we do need to sell. And so we put it on the market. The market's hot. Not only does it go for 350, it goes for 365, no contingencies, and they want to close in 45 days. Well, now I'm a motivated buyer. Now I have to find some place to move to, and I need to make the move quickly, right? So now I might look at a couple of things and pull the trigger. Have you ever had that scenario with a seller?
Absolutely.
Yeah. However, if you're working with a buyer and they have a lease, it's month to month. Um, they they have a lease, it's month to month. They don't have to move. They're comfortable where they are. They don't have to move. 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 They don't have to m They don't have to move. They're comfortable where they are. Um, They want to see what they can afford. They want to see what's available in this section of town. And you take them out and you show them a drop dead opportunity. Have you ever had them where they didn't pull the trigger?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Does that mean you did a bad job with them as a buyer's agent?
No.
Does it mean that they're a bad opportunity?
No.
No. And so that's the same thing when we get the opportunity to make the presentation. You know, the reality of it is they're not looking to make a change. So sometimes we talk to people and they're looking to make a change, right? They're hot, meaning they just had it out with their broker, right? The broker treated them poorly on a deal. The broker brought up some obscure clause in their independent contractors agreement, and the agent is getting something that they feel is very not fair. Maybe the broker is in trouble and got fired, and now they're looking for a replacement manager or something like that. So there can be a lot of things that are happening in an agent's life that's causing them stress or duress, and they're going to make a change, and they're going to make a change in the near future. Right? Have you ever seen that happen in any office?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so for those folks, that's what I call, someone's put a stick of dynamite in their canoe. Right? I imagine we're paddling around this nice lake. It's a beautiful day. There's a soft breeze. We got our thermos full of coffee, and we're just enjoying everything. And we paddle up alongside someone else enjoying the morning, and we say, "Hey, would you like to come over to our boat?" And they would say no, right? There's no reason to. My boat's perfectly fine. And you say, "Well, my boat's a little bit bigger. My boat has more room. My boat has coffee, and you don't have to be alone over there. We could chit chat the morning away." And they go, "No, I'm perfectly happy in my boat." It's no judgment on you or your boat. But now you paddle back around, an hour later, and someone's thrown a stick of dynamite in their boat, and it's wedged underneath the seat, and they can't get it out. Now, do you think they're ready to hop in your boat?
Yep.
Yeah. And so, sometimes when we talk to an agent, there's a stick of dynamite in their boat, and they're curious, and they're making a move, and we may or may not be the right fit, but they're making a move. And so, think of that like it's a listing appointment with a motivated seller that has a reason to get the house on the market, priced right, make a decision, and let's get this done. But I think most people that we talk to are not thinking about making a change. They're fairly happy with how everything is going. And along come us or you, and you're telling them how great your boat is, how great the coffee is, you got a bigger paddle, you know the secret fishing spot. I mean, all those things. And they're like, "No, I'm actually very content. And by the way, it's the spring market, and I'm very busy. So stop talking to me about this." Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So based on that, are there better times to make that initial
Here's my philosophy. The easiest way to move someone over is to be the first person they call when there's a stick of dynamite in their boat. And so part of it is being in a relationship with as many people as possible and be the first call when there's a stick of dynamite in their boat. And the stick of dynamite can show up in a lot of different ways. And I think part of your skill set that you want to develop is to identify what the potential sticks of dynamite are in someone's life in your market. And let me just try to give you some ideas here. So in some markets where I was a team leader, the brokerages had a reset at the beginning of the year, right? So let's say everyone reset to 50-50 or 60-40. And in the more progressive, aggressive brokerages, they would allow their agents to go all the way to maybe a 90-10 or a 95-5. And so when they did their first, let's say, 20, 30,000 at GCI, they went from 60-40 to 65, and then they did another couple deals. They went to 70, another deal they went to 75, and all of that. And so if I was talking to someone in the fall, they might be at 90 or 95% of the GCI. And so none of those people wanted to make a move in that time of year because that would be crazy, right? However, I knew in those brokerages that January 1, everyone reset to 60-40. And so the prime time to be getting involved with everyone was the fall when they weren't interested, right? Because now I could start the relationship. And if I could get into that relationship and be able to share with them and them say, it doesn't make sense for me to move now, blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, nope, the reason why I want you to understand everything is when there's a stick of dynamite in your boat, I want to be the first call that you make. And that's why I'd like you to understand what's going on here. And then you do the presentation, and they go, well, it's all good, but I'm at 95% today. And we'll say, great. But if you were back at 64%, this is much more interesting and compelling. I want to be, the first call. And so, that is a guaranteed stick of dynamite in the boat every year.
That makes sense.
Another thing that happens is there are some brokerages like Keller Williams, and I'm not picking on them. I just know the model. There are some brokerages like that have a high turnover in their leadership position. And that's not true in every Keller Williams market center. In some of them, there have been team leaders that have been in the same market center for 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. I'm not sure anymore. But the average team leader is only in their role for 14 months. And it's a very hard job once the market center is open. Because imagine this, let's say you're the third team leader in, the market center is now 5 or 6 years old. And let's say in that market grid, there's maybe 1,000 agents for them to call. Maybe there's 5,000 agents. In the market centers that I did, typically there were 1,000 agents in my market center grid. And so you go in, there's been a few people in there before you got there. Their job was to call everyone. Their job was to give away a free book to get everyone to come meet with them and to tell the story. And they were highly trained in the objection handling process. And so after 5 or 6 years, everyone who is willing to have the conversation has, everyone who is willing to move has, and everyone else either has refused to have the conversation or they've listened once or twice and haven't been compelled, and now your job is to call them, right? And so if you're that team leader, the third or fourth one in, and you have a quota, and their quota today, I think, is still 2 appointments a day, 10 a week, 40 a month. And if you don't do it, you're going to get fired, right? So they bring you in. You're all optimistic. They're optimistic about you. They send you off to training. You come back. You don't do well your first month. They give you encouragement. You don't do well the second month. They put a little pressure on you. You don't do well the third month. They put you on a plan, an improvement plan. They hold you accountable. They grind you. You do it for a year, and then you start in the process to find another job. Right? That's why it's 14 months in most cases. And so if you have that kind of situation in your local market, just know there's a built-in stick of dynamite in that office. Every year and a half or so, there's a little explosion going on in there, and all the people who were recruited by that team leader are upset because the person left. There are some people who don't plug into the market center because they don't want to invest in the emotional buy-in to get to know another person because they know they're there short term, whatever it is. And so that might be that perennial or annual stick of dynamite in the boat. You can, if you're in the local market, you know so much of what's going on in that maybe this manager is now retiring and they sold to someone else. And maybe the agents aren't happy with that. Maybe someone isn't making money and they're changing their model. Maybe someone was an independent, now they're a franchise, and now all the agents have got to pay 6 or 7 or 8% franchise fee, right? So in that local market, you can identify where those stick of dynamites are if you're having a couple of appointments every week, because agents will tell you, right? And so I think part of it is having a meaningful relationship with as many people as you can. And so I've done book clubs, right? Pick a book. Pick something that is relative to personal growth, something that is relative to sales growth in general, something that is specific to real estate, right? So some people do it in a coaching type environment, some people do it in a knowledge-based environment. But if you're doing a book club and you have 20 people getting together every week, working your way through a book, and you're leading it, that puts you in a position of credibility and building relationships, right? If a stick of dynamite goes off, of course you're in the conversation. And so what I try to get people to understand is you cannot control the gait of the horse, right? You can choose to be on the horse. You can know how to get the horse going. You can know how to get it in a direction, and you can somewhat control the speed, but you cannot control the entire gait of the horse. The horse is going to run the way the horse runs. So you cannot control someone's timing. And so if I talk with someone and they're very excited, they're ready for an opportunity, they may, like me, I heard the conversation on Sunday night. I resigned on Monday morning. I wasn't looking for an opportunity. I'm a high D. I can make decisions quick. I'm pretty good at assessing stuff, and so I was very comfortable in a very short period of time, and I made an incredible leap of faith. Most people, 75%, are high Cs, and they are much more about staying safe in the group and being more stable. And so they just take a longer period of time. And so for me, if I was working on expanding in a local area, I would want to meet with every good agent. And if you don't know people, meet with them. You'll know whether they're good people or not. I never judge anyone based on their productivity. Last year I did 0 sales. And so if people judge me on my productivity, they would never give me a call. But I've built a little group that has now 1,065 people in it. I'm a pretty good person to have in your rev share group, right? And so, don't judge people solely on one thing. Meet them and judge them as a person. Are they someone that you'd want to be in business with? And if they applied some of the opportunities that are here, would they win at a high level? Then those are people you want to be in business with. And so I would have a plan to meet with as many people as I can, to get to know them, to have some kind of future touch point with them, and to have a good enough relationship with them that if something should go wrong, if I'm not the first call, I'm one of 2 people that they're calling. Just give me that, and I can build a company. Does that make sense, Tim?
Can I interject some facts?
Yeah,
about,
please.
So the Keller Williams here in town, I was one of the core members that started that particular market center. I was agent 5 out of what became 650 agents. At one point in time, I owned 2 or 3% of the market center. In 2015, corporate came down and said to the franchisor that they could not share their ownership with anybody else. That obviously I got a buyout at that point, which was fine. And it wasn't because of that I left Keller Williams at all. In fact, when I did my exit interview there, I said, I'm not mad at anybody. I get along with everybody here. I like the company. So it really almost surprised them. Well, why are you leaving? And I just said, well, I have better opportunities over here. And of course, immediately I got rid of the franchise fee. So there was $5,000 to the good, even if nothing else turned out.
Right.
And so that was fine. The person that we have at team leader position at the market center now has been there probably at least 4 years. She's extremely successful. We're one of the the market centers in this area who has shared all but 2 months of its existence since 1999, and at one point was the top market center in the country 2 years in a row. And so there's a little bit of a, part of what you're saying makes sense, part of it doesn't in this particular instance. But I thought, that I had enough following there that I would hear from at least one or two, on my leaving. And, I got notes from staff and stuff like that, sorry you're leaving and all that sort of stuff. We'll miss you. But none of the actual agents ever reached out and said, why'd you go?
Yeah. So thanks. First of all, thank you for sharing that. And so I always, as a high D, I want to be in control as many things as I can. And when I'm not in control, I'm stressed, right?
Right.
And so where your D is low, I'm going to guess you're probably the opposite of that. Your high C might want you to be more in control, but a low D typically you don't care. So for me, I would never wait for anyone to call me. I would make my list, right? There's 600 people in the market center. There are some people that you brought over. There are some people that are your friends. There are some people that were minority shareholders also. There are people that would be icon agents here. There are people that would be leaders, right? And so the first thing I would do, I'd make a list of those 600 people. I would cross off anyone that I wouldn't want to be in business with, because it's not about the body count, it's about the quality. And
Right.
And so then you're less, and maybe some people you don't know, and maybe you need to reach out to them. But if it were me, I would call each person, and based on what I know about you, Tim, my script would go something like this. Of course, make it your own, right?
Right.
But it would go something like this. Hey, Tim, Dave, how you doing? How's the market going? How are the kids? I mean, whatever it is, right? If I have a relationship with them, I want to tie it into the relationship first, because I'm calling them based on relationship.
Right.
And then I could do something as simple as, I really miss seeing your face. I really miss having a cup of coffee with you. I really miss seeing you around the office. I'd love to catch up with you. How about a cup of coffee on Thursday, or is next week better for you? And I would just start there, just reestablishing the relationship.
And so, really, other than maybe coming in with my name badge on and my shirt that has EXP on it, maybe not necessarily even crossing that bridge, unless maybe they ask, hey, how's it going there at EXP? And then maybe that would give you an entree to be able to share how it's going, in that regard, rather than hitting them with an Amway
Oh yeah,
presentation.
yeah. So if you're presenting, you really have one shot, and if you miss, then there's a period of time that needs to go through before you can bring it up again, right? And
Right.
so the stronger your relationship, the shorter that time is that you can repitch. And so if these are people that you you know, they know you at least to some degree, right? I think the most important thing you can do is reestablish your relationship, because you didn't leave them, you just left that brand.
Correct.
And so, I would start with reestablishing my relationship. You're a realtor, I'm a realtor, you're a good person, I'm a good person. We used to hang out, we can still hang out, right? And so that would be part of it. If it was someone that I did not know well enough to do that, then, but they knew of me, right? My conversation might go like this, Tim. Hey, Tim, Dave, I know we didn't get to know each other a whole lot. That office was so big that I think, other than seeing you at the Christmas party, we really didn't get a chance to chat much. The reason why I'm reaching out to you, Tim, is I don't know if you know it or not, but I was a owner in the market center. I was the fifth agent to be in that market center. And I could not have been more excited about building that opportunity over the last, 8 years. And um, as last September I decided to leave, and I've had a lot of people be curious as to why I would do that, since I loved KW. I never would have left unless there was an amazing opportunity for my family. So I'd love to get together with you, share with you a little bit, and I'll even buy you lunch. I'm available on Thursday. Is early next week better for you?
No, it sounds like a reasonable
Right?
pick.
And if someone says, no, no, I'm happy, I'm never going to leave, right?
Right.
What I would say is, I know exactly how you feel. I
Right.
felt exactly the same way, and I wasn't looking to make a move. But I got to tell you, once I understood what the difference was, I decided that it was the best thing for my family. Now, Tim, I just got to ask you, if making the move was truly the best thing for you and your family, you'd at least want to know the details before you said no, wouldn't you?
Makes sense.
Right? And so it's okay to say no, just don't say no before you fully understand what you're saying no to. Make sense?
It does make sense. So one other wild card that I'll throw into it is we have a large independent here who has uh, basically taken over because they are a pay per deal
Yep.
type of setup.
Yep.
And they have probably round numbers about 700 agents in the area, of which maybe 70% of them don't close a deal each year.
Yeah, that's very indicative of that kind of model.
Right. And so uh, if people are going to leave a structure like KW, they've learned as much as they feel like they need to know. Obviously, you and I know that we're lifetime learners, and so every opportunity we have, even something like this that we're doing this morning, is something very effective. So we understand the value proposition of the additional education that we offer and other things. But these people, are looking at it. Well, I only have to pay $4.95 per deal, and so I'm going to take a bunch more home. Of course, they're not looking at the whole picture. They're not looking at the agent ownership that we have. They're not looking at other, pieces to the puzzle. And then, of course, a lot of large teams seem to have migrated over to this company because the way that they've set up their fee structure is different than KW or others, where they want a half cap or something else like that. And so, do you just avoid those people? As not being people that are going to be something that will turn eventually, or do you continue to remain in a relationship and try to build knowledge in their mind of what we have?
That's a really good question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on hold real quick. I'm just going to hit pause because I am out on a patio this morning and my battery is dropping very fast. And so let me just grab my power cord. Give me 2 minutes, grab a cup of coffee, and I'll be right back.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thanks for giving me that little break there. So let's talk about that for a second. So if they're the agents that are doing 2, 3, 4 deals a year, they're only there for the low fees. They don't care about education, all that kind of stuff. I wouldn't bother, right? In going into those kind of companies, I would go after cappers, icons, and leaders. Right, because let's just talk about icon, right? So if there's someone there who's doing enough to cap plus another 20 deals, enough that would generate $5,000 of cap transaction fees, then they're going to be an icon here this year.
Correct.
And so is someone better off in a low fee company or in a company that's going to award to them $16,000 worth of stock and all of the other stuff that's here. I think they're better off here, right?
I agree.
And so if there's 700 people in that company, I'm going to guess that there's less than 70 of them that are really worth talking to at that level. And so I would go after them. And my scripting with them would go something like this. Hey, Tim, the reason why I'm reaching out is obviously you're a savvy business person and made the move over there to get the best opportunity, for who you broker through. I'd love to share with you how things work here. You would, I believe, you would qualify to be what we call an icon agent, and there's a serious stock incentive for people of your caliber. I have time on Thursday or is early next week better for you. I just want to make sure that you understand what the offering is.
That sounds like a deal.
Okay? And so, and then on the other side, right, so we talked about KW having 600 people. We talked about this independent having 700 people. Then you got everybody else. And so, you have the C21s, the ERAs, the Better Homes and Gardens, all of those. You got the independents. And so all of them are trying to leverage their agents' production and credibility to make money and to have a brokerage that has some value. And so every single one of those agents need to understand what their value is to us. And so how many people do you think are within 100 miles of you that don't work for that KW and don't work for that low fee brokerage?
Several thousand.
Several thousand. And so percentage wise, how many of those several thousand have you spoken with in the last 7 months?
Not a large number.
Okay. And so I would say that you should put yourself on a regiment of some number that you can motivate yourself to achieve, that you're comfortable with, right? So whether it's I'm going to make 2 calls a day, or I'm going to make 2 contacts a day, or I'm going to make 2 a week, whatever it is, right? And so I just saw Scott Smith post a little challenge that he's doing with his group. I'm just scrolling down to see if Scott's in here. If you're in here, chime up, Scott. But I just scrolled through real quick. I didn't see him in here. But he's doing a little challenge of 10 meaningful conversations per week, right? And so that's a great challenge if that's something that you're willing to rise to. Or that's a terrible challenge if that's a small percentage of what you're willing to do. But I would say if you've got a couple thousand people to talk to, I would put yourself on a deadline of whatever it is, right? The next 12 years, the next 12 days, something where you are going to talk to as many of those people as possible. The reason is this, and you have to buy into this concept. If there's 1,000 people or a couple thousand people for you to talk to, can you buy into the concept that someone just discovered today that they have a stick of dynamite in their canoe?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, that makes sense.
So those people are making a change with or without having your information.
Good point.
Right? And so I would make it my number one goal to talk to all of those people before I lamented about calling someone back who said no. Because by the time you cycle through everyone, if there's 2,000 people and let's say you're calling 10 a day, that's going to be 200 days, right? That's almost a full working year.
Right.
By the time you cycle back around and you get to the first person on the list who said no, maybe they discovered a stick of dynamite in their canoe.
Good point.
So whenever I talk to someone who's in a market where we've existed for a period of time with not a high degree of success, I always tell the Texas story. And for those of you guys that know me, you know I love stories. I think it makes, for me, it's the easiest way to make points. So here's my Texas story, and feel free to share it. So I would put it like this. I was talking with my business partner, Dave Gagnon, and what he told me was when he came over to EXP over 5 years ago, part of his job was to talk to all of the leaders across the country and to help them grow. And in Texas, they had actually been operating for a couple of years, and there was a total of about 6 people in Texas after a couple of years. And when Dave asked why were there only 6 people after a couple of years, the answer was, this model doesn't work in Texas. That's what the leader told me. So about 2 years after that, someone came in, and they were well known locally, and they were liked, and they loved the opportunity, and they made the move over. And they made it a mission to talk to everyone that they knew. And in less than a year, just one city in Texas had over 100 people. Now, we've attracted some other people who are well known and liked and trusted, and they've been working in other areas around Texas. And the last number I heard was a few months ago, and I heard that we were over 2,000 people, I think 2,500 people, and we've only brought in one wonderful leader who has then led to many, many, many other wonderful leaders. And now in Texas, we've gone from 6 people to over 2,500 people in less than 3 years. And so
glad it didn't work in Texas.
Yeah, the model doesn't work in Texas, right? And so, and I have found this to be true across the country. And so my question, Tim, is, are you a leader or a follower? And I would shut up and wait for an answer when you ask that question. So just role play it with me, Tim. Let's say you're not here, you're still with your old company. And if I said, Tim, are you a leader or a follower?
Leader.
Leader. Okay. So I need you to act like a leader, right? So what a leader would want to do is to know the facts, to allow themselves to make the best decision that they can. Now, the key for us to grow in Idaho, to be quite frank with you, is to identify about 25 to 50 leaders like you. The followers are not going to come until the leaders are here to follow. Does that make sense?
Does make sense.
Okay. So I want to get together with you. I want to share with you what other leaders are doing across the country. And if you get as excited about the opportunity as I did, or as excited as Dave Gagnon did, then together I think we can dominate the entire state. So I'm going to send you this video. It's 32 minutes. Take a look at it. Understand the model, but you're not going to understand the opportunity fully until we talk. Does that make sense?
It does. Do you have a link for the video?
It's on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
If you're in our private Facebook group, I posted this meeting last week, so you should be able to click on it. It'll bring you to the YouTube channel, and you can see the other recordings of this meeting as well as other stuff that I've put in there. But
Okay.
the video's in there. I'm going to warn you guys, it's my old presentation, my old one, the one I did about a month ago. And my goal is to record a new one with a new slide deck this week. I do have some time on my calendar to get that carved out. So the link won't work once I replace it. So pay attention in the private Facebook group. As soon as I post a new one, I'm going to post it in there. And everyone just needs to make sure that you update your links and any emails that you send out, and then share it with everyone that you've given to in the past. So I just need to update it. to be in compliance with the attraction pledge.
Hey, Dave,
Yes.
can you repeat what you said there about when you watch the video, you're going to get the
Yeah.
basic ideas, but you're not going to we're going to have to meet to get the real it was really good, so I want to understand what you said there.
The good thing is I've recorded it and it'll be up on YouTube later today. How about that?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, but so when I share it with people who are leaders, right? So if I'm sharing it with an agent, then I want them to understand everything from the agent perspective, right? And that's the four pillars, right? It's, what's the benefit of the technology model? What's the benefit of the financial model? What's the benefit of the equity model? What's the benefit of the rev share model? And so that's the purpose of the video, right? To make sure that we've covered all of the things that people need to know when they're making their decision. However, I, with the attraction pledge, it's a very muted message, right? If I'm meeting with someone live, I can let them know how it's gone for me, right? It's not about rah rah. It's not about overselling the opportunity, right? But if I'm talking to someone who's running a brokerage with 20 people, I'm going to tell them about Steve and Sally, right? And how they made their decision to not renew their franchise agreement once they were in their free look period and they decided to be here. If I'm talking to an independent, I can share Mitch's story and how he came over with 40 people. And after, where are we now? He's probably 8 months in. I think he's around 250 people. I really think he's going to be 750 to 1,000 people in the next 12 months. But I can't do that in a public presentation. I can't do that in a webinar, right? No sensationalism. But if I'm talking with someone who's truly a leader, and I want them to understand how it's worked for other leaders, I can share those stories, right? And so I want them to understand the video for the opportunity from the agent's perspective. But as a leader, I want them to meet with me and fully understand it from a leader's perspective. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right.
Dave, I have a question for you.
Who is that?
Maria.
Hey, Maria.
Hey. Okay, so someone else actually asked this question in the thread, but if I am fairly new to real estate, but I am also very good at networking, I would say that was my strength. I'm a high I and a high D. And I've thought about starting my own network group. What opinion about that, and what your guidance?
Okay, just so I understand the question. So you're newer to real estate, and you want to be able to build your revenue share group, but maybe you don't have the contacts or the relationships yet?
No, I do have contacts and relationships. I have that. But as far as, because I am newer to real estate, 3 years, I'm not an icon agent or a top agent. However, I have 4 sons, older sons. I have a very large sphere, and I network very well. So would you suggest I maybe start my own networking group?
Well,
What's your...
yeah, for me, attraction is a full contact sport, right? And so I would start with the people that you have a relationship with. So you've been in the business 3 years, which means you've done some co-brokes. It means you probably have shown an awful lot of properties where you did not get to contract. Maybe you've met people at open houses. Maybe you have participated in board events, continuing education, training, all of those kind of things, right? So if you've been in the business 3 years, you probably have at least 100 people that you know their name. I would start with them, right? So, and whatever brings people together to build relationships, I think is the strongest way to build. Um, so, for example, if you pick a topic that has some play with a target audience, so you might start a lead generation mastermind that gets together once a week. At the local, we have Blake's as a breakfast place. They typically have a room in the back that they'll let you have for free as long as everyone's buying breakfast. And so B&I groups meet there, other networking type groups. So you get a free room, everyone gets a breakfast, you present an idea, a concept for the meeting, and then everyone goes around the room and shares their best strategy that they've had success with, right? And maybe only 2 people out of 25 have something positive to contribute. That's fine. We move on to the next topic. And if you whether you believe there's 10 lead generation tactics or 1,000, every week you do one, right? And so now you're meeting with people, you're bringing value to people. You can be in relationships with people. Some people have sticks of dynamite in their boat. Some people will in the future. That's a great way to do it. I'm going to give you another idea. And so the other idea is having a higher source of credibility. And so whether that's your direct upline or someone in your upline, right, you should be able to find someone who has achieved at a level that their story would have credibility with whoever you wanted to talk with. So for example, when I started, I did not have the credibility in EXP. And so my first 5 or 10 appointments, I did them with my upline, right?
Okay.
Because he knew, it wasn't even my direct upline, it was 2 uplines. He knew the company, he knew the model, he heard all of the objections, and as I heard them, I could hear the answers in different ways. I could adopt that to my style, and then once I was more comfortable with it, I could tell those stories. And even if I didn't have the credibility, I could say, my partner, my mentor said, right? And I could tie that back in. And so that would allow you to have conversations with people that might be over your pay grade with credibility only being in the business 3 years. Maybe you don't feel like you have credibility with folks who are running a team of 20 or brokerages with 40, 50 agents or iconic agents or whatever it might be. But now you could call someone who's an icon and you can just go in our group and ask who's an icon, right? So I know Jack Lowry's an icon. I know Svetlana's an icon. I know Valerie is, Chuck Keller. And so if you could find icons that are in your group, now you can tell their story.
Okay.
Right? And so if I were calling an icon, but I'm not an icon, right, I could call and say, Maria, the reason why I'm giving you a call is, based on everything I know about you, you're an iconic agent here in Anytown, USA. And my mentor, Dave Gagnon, always has said that there's no brokerage worth anything without its agents. Do you agree with that? Of course you do. Well,
Okay.
well, what Dave has been doing is sharing the story about EXP with iconic agents all over the country. And those icons are realizing their true value to the brokerage. And that's why I'd like to get together with you. I'd like to share the icon program with you. And if you have interest, then I'll have you watch a 32-minute video, which will go over everything else. I think you'll find it amazing. But I really want you to understand that this company is publicly traded. It's on the NASDAQ. Its market cap last week was greater than Remax, and you've never heard of the company. doesn't it make sense that you at least know what the opportunity is and what the equity position is that they're offering you because you're an icon?
You're breaking up a little bit. That's why I couldn't hear.
Could others let me know whether that came through or not?
I got most of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Well, that brings us to the top of the hour. Thank you so much to Tim and Maria for asking great questions. I hope you guys found value in this session. Of course, the more people that come in and ask great questions, the more varied the content can be. I'm going to post this up on my private YouTube channel by the end of the day here. So look for it there and get in our private Facebook group. I'll post it there once it's all uploaded too. So have a productive day. Make your goal, work your plan, share the concept with the people that can impact the most amount of people, and let's keep it growing, guys. I heard from Glenn the other day on his post about NASDAQ that we're now over 11,000 agents, and we're growing at an incredible rate. So keep sharing the good news, and if someone says no, it's not no, it's just not now. And so keep building those relationships. Work yourself into a position that you're the first or second call they make when a stick of dynamite lands in their boat. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.